Hello and welcome to Sport Classics and a look at a very special event at London's Wembley Stadium back in the mid-70s. At the time, the American stunt rider Evel Knievel was a major star on both sides of the Atlantic, and he came over to England to attempt to jump 13 red buses on his Harley-Davidson bike. Such was Knievel's box office appeal that a crowd of 90,000 was inside Wembley for the big day on May the 26th, 1975. Knievel was a real showman who'd enjoyed plenty of successes and failures in his stunt riding career. In one corner of the stadium, the sky cycle he'd used in a failed attempt to jump over a canyon in 1974. And as Evel prepared himself for the big event, the crowd were introduced to some famous spectators, among them boxer Henry Cooper and drummer Keith Moon. And there's no doubt that in the 70s, Knievel was a star to rank alongside those legendary names. He was an icon of the era, earning himself a place in the Guinness Book of World Records. No other human being had survived so many broken bones in a lifetime. The huge dangers ensured he took great care in his preparations for the big leap. But this was a stunt spectacular, and the fans would have to wait for the star turn. The support acts were first, and if Evel Knievel's stunt riding was an unusual attraction for Wembley, well, the rest of the lineup was even more weird and wonderful. First up, two men who'd found some dangerous ways of diving into water, all in the name of entertainment. They were introduced to the crowd by radio and television presenter Ed Stewart and actor David Hemmings.
Because we're going to present now two of the most spectacular high diving champions and daredevil artists in the world. They are Franson and Lamotte. Roy Franson and Henry Lamotte coming out of the East Tunnel now.
Right, let's welcome Henry Lamotte and Roy Franson. Here they come. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on this side, Henry Lamotte is going to jump. Let's put it in the water and we'll see how deep the water is today. It should be 16 inches only. 16 inches, and you tell us how much it is, all right? 14 inches only. You see, it's 14 inches only into which Henry Lamotte is going to dive, just to make sure. Do you want to get your trousers wet? Not really, do you? Do you think we should put him in? Where's his mum and dad? What? Just lift him in, and that's it. Again, you like to come in the pool, mate? That's it. 1, 2, 3. Look at that. You see, 14 inches. Right, there he goes. Well done, mate. Thank you very much indeed for coming up. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Here he is, Henry Lamotte. Let's hear for Henry. The Evel Knievel Spectacular is proud to present you a thrill spectacular you've never seen in your life before, unless you've seen it on television. So here's the people we've seen. We've proved there's only 14 inches of water in there, 14 inches of water. Henry's going to climb up 40 feet, dive into the water, and then you'll see him stand up again. The only man in the world that can do that. Let's hear it for Henry Lamotte. Henry, ladies and gentlemen, is 71 years old. Now we have to give Henry a chance to catch his breath from the long climb. He's just testing the guy wires at the moment. The tension must be just right, because Henry uses two forms of Eastern practice. At the top, he uses yoga. When he hits the water, it's karate.
Henry, perhaps understandably, was taking his time with his dive, but the crowd were getting frustrated.
All right, now you've all had your whistles and boos. Quiet, please, while Henry Lamotte does this trick. He cannot do it unless you keep quiet. There's a very, very strong wind up there, and that's why he's taking time. Now, quiet up there, do us a favour. Congratulations, Henry Lamont. That's beautiful.
So well done to Henry. And then attention switched from a pool in one corner of Wembley to a slightly deeper pool in another part of the stadium. This one was on fire.
And there he goes, the Human Torch himself, Roy Franson. That was a very close one to the edge, a very close one to the edge.
That was incredible, wasn't it?
Well, that really was a very, very close one indeed. I should think he came within about 6 inches of the edge. Let's really hear it now for Roy Franson. Roy Franson!
A successful, if slightly eccentric, dive there, and there were plenty of other performers to keep the massive crowd on the edge of their seats. Much of it looked extremely dangerous, but not everything went to plan at Wembley that day. The high wire act briefly threatened to go badly wrong. Thankfully, he got up to carry on his act.
Anybody got a ladder? Oh.
And things went from the sublime to the ridiculous as a troop of clowns took to the hallowed turf. One of the cheerleaders dropped her baton, earning herself a rather uncharitable round of applause. But for most of the afternoon, it was a spectacular and impressive sequence of performers who entertained the huge crowd at Wembley. They were mere warm-ups though for the man himself, Evel Knievel, a 36-year-old from Butte, Montana in the United States.
2 times as many people in this stadium as you have in your entire hometown of Butte, Montana.
Well, it's a wonderful feeling. I think maybe I'd rather be home.
You know, Evel, one has to wonder, after the Snake River, you never said you would retire, you never said that was it or anything else, but one has to wonder why you continue.
Well, I sometimes think that maybe I should quit, but you always want to keep going, and I'm kind of proud of that red, white, and blue number 1 I wear on my shoulder, and I want to keep it on there. I'm glad you're here today. You know, I've never had an accident when you're around, and
you won't have one today.
You came to London, I'll tell you that.
One other thing, the layoff, though, you haven't jumped in over a year.
Yeah, well, I may not be as good as I always was, but you're going to find out today I'm as good once as I always was.
This is long and high.
I'll make it.
Good luck.
Thank you, Frank.
So the waiting was almost over for the patient crowd, and we'll see Evel Knievel in action in just a few moments. Welcome back to Sport Classics and a look at the day daredevil Evel Knievel came to Wembley Stadium in London. It was May 1975 and Knievel was attempting to jump 13 red buses on a motorcycle. The build-up was almost over.
I can honestly say that coming from the United States and never being abroad, I wondered what the people of this country would be like. But everyone that I have met here has been most friendly and sincere, and has made this trip, I hope for me, what you English people make it for every visitor that comes to this country. It's been wonderful being here, believe me. I wondered about coming here because this country is where history started. This country has seen everything. Auto daredevils, motorcycle daredevils, all of the wire acts, all of the trapeze people. And I asked the Hemdale people if I could not, when I came to Wembley in London, perform with the finest performers that the United Kingdom and Europe had to offer. How about one more time, a great round of applause for the people that put a show on here for you today. I came here today to make this jump. Before I do, I would like to ask a favor of you. You would give the same courtesy to a race car driver or to a man who wanted to run a horse. I would like to get warmed up a little bit before I make the jump, and to get warmed up, I like to ride my motorcycle on the rear wheel. Would you like to see some wheelies? I'd like to do some wheelies for you. Okay.
So Evel got on his bike to begin the show. So now everybody was ready, except for Evel, who had one final word for the fans.
I have never jumped 13 buses. I have never jumped this high before in my life, with the exception of the Snake River Canyon. Then I was not on my Harley-Davidson motorcycle. I have many sponsors in the United States, people that I'm proud to be associated with. And Harley-Davidson and the Candy Chuckles that you don't have here are two of them that I'm very proud of. You people here today have been a wonderful, wonderful crowd. I'm glad that you all made it. And now I'm going to do my best to make it. Right across these 13 London buses, I'm going to land right on this X. You hang on to your seats, I'll hang on to the handlebars, and we'll get this over with.
On the side of his helmet it says, "Colour me lucky," incidentally, but there's not much luck about it. It's all skill all the way. Because of the particular difficulties of the stadium, it is a very complicated jump, and it's restricted more than any other jump he's ever performed. He's checking the ramp now to make sure again that it's dead central, that the takeoff point is absolutely clear.
And with the moment of truth approaching fast, Evel teased the crowd with a final dummy run.
Evel Knievel out of Butte, Montana, 37 years old. Practically every bone in his body has been broken at one time or another over the course of his daredevil years. An amazing man. He has taken London quite by storm. I spent a couple of hours with him prior to the jump, and like any other athlete before any other contest, obviously he was nervous. But just before he came out, made his appearance, did his thing, if you will, with the wheelies back and forth, turning on the crowd. He almost dozed off in the booth. He leaned out the window and looked at a crowd of 80,000 people. He said, "What does a man have to do to get this many people together?" And I looked at him and I said, Evel, you're doing it. He will be going about 90 miles an hour when he leaves the ramp. He estimates he'll cover 140 feet. 10 feet either direction, and it could be all over. Evel Knievel made his first jump when he was 15, countless other jumps after that. In 1966, hurt himself in Indio. 1967, Caesar's Palace, here he goes, and he will go. He's down, and he is hurt. Oh, my God.
Nobody please touch his helmet and stand away until his own people can be there. Please stand way back.
Down, and he is hurt. The bike is being removed. I'm trying to ascertain whether or not he's even conscious, because he's hurt. He's hurt bad. Stay away from me, please. Stay away from me. Get him back, get some air.
Well, the doctor and the crew from the ambulance, which is brought here specifically by Evel Knievel, is taking away.
Back a bit.
And the instructions now are that if he's not too badly hurt, to take him to the London clinic. If he's very badly hurt, to go to the London hospital in Whitechapel. And if it's much worse than that, then to the Northwick Hospital in Harrow. He's unconscious. The doctor and 4 of the private ambulance crew are bringing him onto the stretcher.
He appears to be semi-conscious. His left arm is being held.
He's completely unconscious. No, he's lifted his head. He raised his head. He's come around. He's okay. He's all right.
So Evel clearly in distress after his gallant attempt to leap 13 buses. But as he struggled to regain his composure, the organisers had a job on to keep some of his young fans away.
Will all the children on the pitch please go straight back to the stands, please? Now straight back. He's coming off the... Apparently he's coming off the stretcher and he's coming up the ramp. Then a great hand. A great hand from Wembley Stadium. A great hand. Ladies and gentlemen of this wonderful country, I've got to tell you that you are the last people in the world who will ever see me jump, because I will never, ever, ever jump again. I am through. There must be 70,000 people here today, and if any of you doubted for one single solitary second in your mind that what Evel Knievel does
is the most unbelievably daring thing. That must be the living proof of it. Well, we've all shared an incredible experience this afternoon. We've spent a long time with you preparing for this, and I want everybody in this stadium, because we've known the courage of the man in attempting this jump. We've known what he's been through in preparing for it and trying. And I want to hear the whole of this stadium rise and give that man the best that you can all do. Let's hear it all around the stadium for Evel Knievel!
Knievel was clearly in shock and seriously injured. It was later reported that he'd broken his pelvis. But once the showman, always the showman. Evel refused to go on a stretcher, insisting he'd come into the stadium walking and he'd leave it walking. And he'd change his mind about jumping again, successfully clearing 14 buses less than 6 months later in Ohio.
And now, 3 cheers, the best we can muster, for Evel Knievel. Hip hip! Hip hip!
The cheers of the spectators were loud and long, even though they hadn't seen exactly what they'd hoped for. A fine line between success and failure once again demonstrated, although more painfully than usual. Evel Knievel eventually retired in 1981 and died in 2007, aged 69. But few who were at Wembley in 1975 will ever forget one of the great showmen of the 70s. We hope you've enjoyed our dip into the archives. Join us again for more sport classics.